Hello, welcome once again to the GPP Chin Music Podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. As you know, he is B. Chad 50, Josh Shepherdson. We're talking about tonight's action for tournaments. So if you're here to have us tell you to play Garrett Cole in cash games, this is not the place. We are here to tell you who to play in GPPs. Obviously, Cole going to be a popular play, so fading him in GPPs may be a viable strategy. But we'll get to that here. Actually, right now, we'll start off at pitcher. Garrett Cole is $11,100 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings he's pretty pricey there as well. Obviously, most expensive pitcher on both sites. He's $10,500. So gets the Reds. He's a big favorite, -190, 6.5 run total. He's your top cash game option for sure. But there's certainly some merit to fading him in GPPs because he's going to have such a high ownership, especially for this big of a slate, that I don't think I will have any exposure in GPPs tonight.
Yeah, and the nice thing about such a clear-cut favorite, and it's something that I know Chris has written about in the stacking and ownership article, is when you got a clear-cut favorite like Cole, who's going to be so high owned in GPPs, it actually makes the stacks at Coors Field more viable because you're going to be competing with less people making those stacks, simply because you can't afford that stack with a Garrett Cole. Now, if you want to spin down to some of the cheaper pitchers, which is definitely advisable, then you can get these Coors Field stacks in, whether it's the Diamondbacks or the Rockies, or you're mixing and matching and stacking both ways. And I think that's really the way to go in GPPs tonight. There are a handful of cheap-ish pitching names that I like, but there's no pitcher that I like more in GPPs tonight than Clay Buchholz. And to be honest, it's really not that close. DraftKings, his price point is insanely low at $7,200. He barely cracks the top 10 in pricing there. Go ahead and start your GPP lineups by sticking him in. On FanDuel, $8,400, third most expensive arm. I think that's actually also slightly underpriced, but at least fair. And in terms of ranking by price, third, that's reasonable. He's definitely a top 5 arm on tonight's slate. Really nice underlying statistics. The ERA is finally coming down and approaching the ERA estimators. Good strikeout rate, doesn't walk anybody, keeps the ball on the ground. And perhaps most importantly, facing an Orioles lineup that has a bottom 5 strikeout rate, meaning one of the 5 worst strikeout rates in baseball against right-handed pitching this year. So you pair that with Buchholz's ability to miss bats, and you've got a very high ceiling. And righty Bud Norris struggles with left-handed bats. Red Sox have some to throw at him, so I'd expect some run support. Buchholz, decent betting favorite, so expecting a W and expecting a quality start. Now, obviously, Buchholz isn't the most consistent, so he is definitely best reserved for GPPs, which is why he's being discussed on the GPP Chin Music podcast. But that volatility needs to be embraced because the upside is really high with Buchholz. But a couple other names that I'm looking at. I like both sides of the Milwaukee game. I do lean towards Nelson a bit, price considered, and the fact that he is a home betting favorite considered. $6,900 on FanDuel, just $6,100 on DraftKings. Is a betting favorite. Mets hold a 3.5 run over-under total, and the Mets are dreadful. Bottom 5 in WOBA against right-handed pitching. One of the worst teams measured by WRC Plus as well. Just not a good offense against right-handed pitching. Nelson has been a Jekyll and Hyde story all season. When he's good, he's been fairly good. He's got 8 games of 5 strikeouts or more. He does have a handful of really messy starts on the slate, though, which should drive his ownership down. But I'm liking Nelson a little bit tonight. And then, it's not like the Brewers have been much better against right-handers. So if you want to go the Bartolo Colon route, walks no one, should pitch deep into the games. If he can avoid long ball troubles at Miller Park, then you've got a guy that can give you 7 to 8 innings. He is one of those guys that can take the ball at the beginning of the game and hand it to the manager after the game because he doesn't walk anybody. So there's not that huge strikeout upside. The Brewers do strike out a bit, so he does get a little bit of a lift in the strikeout category tonight. Below average strikeout rate for the year, but does not walk anybody. So if you're looking for a guy that's efficient, can pitch deep into games, Cologne can do that. So I like both sides of that game, but again, Clay Buchholz is my top arm in GPPs tonight.
And I'm 100% with you on Clay Buchholz. You mentioned all of his numbers. He's just in a really good spot. Certainly, like you said, risky with that offense, but also good because that offense swings and misses a lot. And we got guys like Chris Davis who just swing at everything. It's just I mean, he's sending a free breeze into the seats every single day, and so I mean, I like him a lot. A couple other guys that I'm looking at here. I like Ryan Vogelsong a lot. I think he's maybe better as a secondary cash game option, but at 6,700, we saw how bad this Padres offense was last night, the night before, every other night they've played over the past month or so. I mean, Vogelsong at Seattle last time out, 6 Ks and 6 2/3, got the win. I mean, he's got the upside, especially at his price tag. He's $6,700 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, he's only $6,200. So, I mean, I think he's in a great spot against a team that's striking out a ton. They're just not putting the ball in play. I mean, it's just a great situation for really any pitcher right now. But a guy like Vogelsong, who, of course, he's got a low floor, but I mean, he hasn't pitched poorly this season. So, especially in that ballpark, I think that he's certainly in play. And then I'm going to throw in the opposite side of Garrett Cole and go with Mike Leake. He's had some success against the Pirates over the past couple of years. Really tough on righties. We know he's not so good against lefties, but he's opposed Garrett Cole a couple times already and actually has outscored him in both those times. So had some troubles with walks the first time, 6 walks in that game. But dating back to last season, Mike Leake has had quite a bit of success against the Pirates, and I'm certainly not encouraging him as a cash game play necessarily, but I think is a viable option. It's, I mean, barely half the salary of Cole's on FanDuel, and on DraftKings he's nice and cheap as well at $6,800. So I think he's a really interesting tournament play, if for no other reason than the low ownership, because everyone will be on Garrett Cole.
Yeah, and I'll add a little fuel to your Ryan Vogelsong fire. Minus 121 favorite, not a big favorite, but a favorite at home according to Pinnacle. And more importantly, odds makers really like this to be a pitcher's duel. Just a 3-run over-under total for the Padres tonight. So that's a fairly nice total, fairly nice floor. Granted, you're obviously chasing ceiling in GPPs, but it doesn't. When you're getting an SP2 at his price on DK, that floor comes into play quite a bit because you're looking to get those hitters at Coors Field. So don't completely discount a high floor here just because you want to get ceiling happy. There just aren't a lot of super high ceiling hurlers anyway. So getting a high floor, getting some points from your pitchers, and then being able to load up on Coors Field is definitely something that gamers should be all over today.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very viable strategy tonight, and one that I'll be looking into quite a bit. Other options here, not a whole lot that it really stands out to me. Kendall Graveman's the guy that's been pitching really well recently. It's a really tough matchup against Texas, which should keep his ownership down. And obviously Adrian Beltre back. You mentioned we were talking before the show. Chu was out last night. Maybe he's back. But, I mean, this is the guy's last 3 games. 7 innings, 6 Ks. 8 innings, 7 Ks. 7 innings, 6 Ks. And at his current price point, which is only $5,400 on FanDuel and $5,600 on DraftKings, you don't need a whole hell of a lot. And Wandy Rodriguez, yes, Oakland does not hit lefties hardly at all. They're one of the worst in the league. But you might not need a whole lot of run support, you know, if he gets it going. I don't know. He's a guy who doesn't have a ton of upside, but he's efficient. So he pitches deep into games when he's got it going. And you don't need a lot from him at that price. He's a great option if you just want to stack cores and just hope for the best with a cheap pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, this is a kind of night where price sensitivity matters, and if you want to stick in a handful of cheap arms, it gives you so much flexibility in the event that we get one of those ridiculous fireworks games at Coors Field. And I mean, with a high total like it has, there's certainly that potential.
Yeah, absolutely. So any other pitchers you're looking at tonight?
No, not really. That pretty much sums things up for me.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on here to catcher, where last night there were quite a few options, and usually when there's a game in Coors Field, you got a couple options you feel pretty good about. So I'll throw out some non-obvious guys because obviously those guys are in play. Buster Posey gets Ian Kennedy tonight. Obviously Buster Posey, he's fine against righties. He's a good hitter against righties, better against lefties, and it is a pitcher's park. But Ian Kennedy, as we know, is big struggle giving up the long ball. So I'm certainly looking his direction and some GPPs. Matt Wieters is a guy who's been hitting the ball well. I'm not trying to pick on Clay Buchholz. Obviously, as we were just talking about, he's a guy that we really like in GPPs quite a bit. But another guy, double dong upside, obviously hit 2 of them a couple days ago. Yasmani Grandal tonight gets Kyle Hendricks, who he's been an effective pitcher. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been terrible. Doesn't strike out a lot of batters. More of a contact pitcher. So that's another reason why I like Grandal tonight.
Yeah, Grandal's probably my favorite play when considering price and and other factors tonight at catcher, assuming he's in the lineup. I mean, it's not a Clayton Kershaw day, so he should be. But I do like the switch hitting catcher. Very good against right-handed pitching. Really thriving in year one with the Dodgers. Posey, as you said, another strong play, especially since he's one of the only right-handed bat that projects to be in the first 6 spots in that Giants lineup. Kennedy struggles mightily with lefties, so expect some guys to be on base for Posey tonight. And he's got a couple guys to drive him in behind him because Posey, I mean, yes, he's stronger against left-handed pitching, but well above average hitter against righties. Kennedy, yes, he's worse against lefties and righties, but Posey, not your average right-handed batter. So the fact that the rest of his lineup around him is left-handed and should be able to exploit Kennedy's weakness does elevate his ceiling and his floor quite a bit. So I do like Posey a little bit. Obviously, you want to grab some pieces of Coors Field. Catcher's not a bad place to do it, especially if you're going to go ahead, as long as Willian Rosario is playing first base again tonight. $3,500 for a guy who's only first base eligible on FanDuel, but first base and catcher eligible on DraftKings. Can slot him in at catcher for just $3,500. Had a nice lineup spot last night. Not a bad play at just $3,500 if you're looking for some Coors Field exposure.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I certainly am one of the many looking for some Coors Field exposure tonight. Moving on to first base, we'll say Paul Goldschmidt just because he's so hard to get into your cash game. $6,100 on FanDuel. DraftKings, $6,600. Ridiculous price tag there. I mean, he's up there. He's priced higher than I think like 10 pitchers tonight, something like that. But either way, I mean, he's a great play if you can get him in there. Just good luck getting him into your lineups tonight. Some other options, I really like Anthony Rizzo, as always, in tournaments. Gets Mike Bolsinger today, who isn't a guy that scares me by any means. He's been an okay pitcher, but Anthony Rizzo, especially at home, as a lefty, I mean, he can just crush anyone. So I really like Anthony Rizzo. And then one of your ultimate tournament options, Joey Votto against Garrett Cole. Everyone's going to be on Garrett Cole. Joey Votto, he's only got 1 home run since that big 3 home run game. You're certainly not chasing that. But as we know, the guy's got a ton of power. He's a great hitter, so I think he's a great tournament option tonight.
Yeah, a couple names that I'm looking at as well. David Ortiz against Bud Norris. Norris struggles a great deal with left-handed batters. Has allowed a 363 WOBA to them since 2012. That's 1,312 left-handed batters he's faced. That's That's more than 2 full seasons worth of plate appearances from left-handed batters, and they're basically putting up Hall of Fame numbers against him: a 283, 363, 467 slash line. So he gets absolutely rocked by left-handed pitching. Ortiz, never considered a sexy name, at least not at this point in his career. So probably going to be slightly underowned. Like him at Fenway, good ballpark. Pepper the Green Monster, maybe hit a couple doubles off of it, maybe rip a homer down the right field line. I like Lucas Duda if you're not playing Jimmy Nelson. Gets a nice park shift going from Citi Field to Miller Park. Great home run venue. If you're chasing power, Duda has it, and he's facing a pitcher that also struggles with left-handed batters in Jimmy Nelson. So not a bad play if you ask me. At first base, and beyond that, I like the names that you highlighted as well. So maybe if you want to be slightly contrarian in GPPs, Chris Davis, again, we like Clay Buchholz. I think there are going to be a number of people that like Clay Buchholz. So if you want to grab that power chase, Chris Davis, it's all or nothing. And if you're using Buchholz, you're hoping for the nothing. But if you want to grab Davis and hope for the something, he's certainly capable of that as well.
Yeah, and I'll throw out one more guy for tournaments. Pedro Alvarez, 2,400 on FanDuel, 38 on DraftKings. Mike Leake, like we said, tough on righties, not so tough on lefties. So I think at home in his ballpark, I think he's in a fine spot because for him, doesn't matter what kind of ballpark it's in. If he gets a hold of one, it's going out into the seats in any venue.
Yeah, it seems fitting that Chris Davis and Pedro Alvarez kind of get lumped together in the conversation. But yep. And the nice thing is both are actually third base eligible at DraftKings as well. So gives you some creative lineup options.
Yeah, and no negatives for strikeouts rest in peace Draft Street. So you don't have to worry about that. Outs are outs. And on DraftKings, no negatives, so it doesn't matter. All right, second base, some options here. Ben Zobrist was an awesome tournament play last night. Not going to lie and say I played one up. He was only in my Oakland stacks, but he's a great play. He's really starting to get it going. He's got 3 home runs in his last 7 games. He's really cheap on FanDuel too, $3,200. Got a really nice price tag over there. On DraftKings, 47, kind of pricey, but second base and outfield eligible there. So I really like him tonight. Obviously, DJ LeMahieu, but he's really not going to set you apart in a tournament. So I'm not saying don't play him in tournaments, but really not going to do much for you because it's going to be a really popular play. Another interesting one here is Colton Wong against Matt Latos. I like him quite a bit here. Showing some power about near the top of that lineup, and they don't have a whole lot else going for them right now in that lineup. So I'm a big fan of Colton Wong tonight.
Yeah, I'll add another name. You don't usually like lefty, but I do like what is behind D. Gordon, and he's a rabbit. If he gets on base, he's probably coming around to score. And the Marlins, one of the best offenses in baseball against left-handed pitching this year. So notice we did not highlight Jaime Garcia as a pitcher that we're going to be using in GPPs tonight. There's a reason for that. So get D. Gordon on base in front of Mr. Giancarlo Stanton batting down there in the cleanup spot and a couple other guys in that lineup. Not sure what the arrangement's going to look like tonight with Prado's still on the disabled list, and some moving and shaking, some moving parts in that lineup. But they have hammered left-handed pitching this year, so getting the leadoff hitter in that lineup is good. And we've always got the stolen base upside with Gordon. You got to like that. Yadier Molina, not exactly the easiest guy to steal in the world, so there is a cap to that stolen base upside. But Gordon's got wheels. If he gets a good jump on Garcia, might get a stolen base, decent, and he's cut down on his strikeout rate this year, so you love when speedsters like that put the ball in play because there's always that chance he gets on base, and I think it's overlooked because you don't get points for reaching by error, fielder's choice, or anything else, but just putting the ball in play for a guy like Gordon is huge because he can come around to score. He isn't one of these base cloggers. It does not take much for him to deliver, so just get on base, and D. Gordon is capable of doing that. Some other names. Let's go right back to Coors Field. If Aaron Hill is in the lineup, got to like Aaron Hill a little bit. Usually decent price point for him. I like Neil Walker quite a bit. Another one of the few left-handed batters that you'll get to use against Mike Leake tonight. The switch hitter is much better against right-handed pitching than lefties, so I do like Neil Walker a little bit. And then digging deeper, Joe Panic, $3,200 at DraftKings. Like the matchup with Ian Kennedy. I think a sneaky stack tonight because of the low total, because of the bad ballpark, is the Giants against Kennedy. As I said, 5 of their first 6 hitters are left-handed. Kennedy struggles with left-handed batters. There's where there's smoke, there might be fire. We saw this over the weekend when they faced Carlos Frias, low total at Dodger Stadium. Giants hung a big number because they had a number of those left-handed bats to throw at Frias, who struggles with left-handed batters. Not Kennedy isn't at that level of struggle with lefties, but still at $3,200, that's a nice price point on DraftKings. One other name at that $3,200 price point that I like a lot, Rougned Odor. Rugi's been on fire since the call from AAA. If Shin-Soo Choo is out again, probably going to get the leadoff assignment as he did last night. $3,200 on DraftKings, and his price remains the minimum salary on FanDuel. I love Rougned Odor, especially if he's hitting leadoff. But even if he's hitting a little bit down in the order, perhaps 6th or something like that, still going to get me some Rugi shares against a righty in Kendall Graveman at Globe Life Park in Arlington. So I'm a big Rougned Odor fan tonight.
Yeah, same here. And like you said, especially on FanDuel where it's min salary, got to get yourself some exposure there. Third base, Nolan Arenado's your obvious play, but he's going to be popular. Manny Machado, if you're not playing Clay Buchholz, been incredible. Even last night, 7 of his last 10 games, he has at least 2 hits. He's incredible right now. So definitely, if you're not on the Buchholz train, get yourself some shares there. Chris Bryant, I always mention him in tournaments. He's a guy you got to consider against Bolsinger. He hits everyone else. He hits all the better pitchers in this. So why can't he hit Mike Bolsinger tonight? I like that. You could throw in Todd Frazier as well. He's had a little bit of success against Garrett Cole. Really pricey on FanDuel, so if you're going with a cheap pitcher, maybe throw him in there as an alternative to Nolan Arenado and kind of set yourself apart. Hope that he gets a hold of one because we know he's got some monster type of power.
Yeah, I'll throw in another hot name at third base. You mentioned Manny Machado being hot. I'm looking on the opposite side of that game. Pablo Sandoval's been on quite the heater as well. He's got numerous multi-hit games in his last. Looking at his last 10 games DraftKings chart, we've got 9 games with a hit. 8 of them have been multi-hit efforts. Number of doubles sprinkled in there. Gets a righty in Bud Norris, which is hugely important because the switch-hitting Sandoval has struggled mightily with lefties. Not so much with righties. Still hitting righties well. And Bud Norris is a righty who struggles in a big way with left-handed batters. So I like Sandoval. That price tag has crept up, so that might actually drive his ownership down a little bit. So I do like him. Just 2,600 still on FanDuel, though. Nice salary relief if you are one of those GPP gamers that's just going to kind of roll with Cole anyways, get that security. You're going to have to save someplace. So Sandoval does give you some upside if you are one of those Cole gamers. And even if you're not, that price point's pretty good. Like Joey Gallo at home against Kendall Graveman. Big raw power. He is a three true outcomes hitter. I love those type of guys. 9 walks, 31 strikeouts, 5 home runs, and 68 at-bats. I mean, his plate appearances are ending in like I said, one of the 3 true outcomes. He's either sauntering down to first because he hit a round tripper, he drew ball 4, or he's heading back to the dugout with his head down. There's not a lot of in between with him, but with his kind of raw power, I love the depth of that Rangers lineup right now with the re-addition of Adrian Beltre to the mix. So I do like some shares of Gallo if you want to chase the power.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll throw out one more guy if he's in the lineup tonight. Jason Rogers is nice and cheap, $2,600, gets Bartolo Colon. I think that he's a nice upside play there if you're punting. But like we said, lots of other options, expensive options, mid-tier guys. So he's going to be the single bullet type of guy. Shortstop, Troy Tulowitzki, move on. Next, Johnny Peralta is only $200 less than Troy Tulowitzki on FanDuel, which certainly he's not a better play by any means or even close to the play that Tulowitzki is, but he's a fine play against Matt Latos. And when you consider the fact that everyone will be on Tulowitzki, he makes for the ultimate tournament swerve if you're paying up at shortstop on FanDuel there. Outside of that, I really like Brandon Crawford against Ian Kennedy. Once again, picking on him with lefties. I mean, he's so bad against lefties. We'll say it a million times if necessary. And then a guy I really like who's cheap, Aidani Hechavarria, hits lefties really well. Has batted leadoff actually a couple times against lefties. Gets Jaime Garcia today. I think some people will be on Jaime Garcia. Like we said, neither one of us are, but I think that he's an interesting play tonight for cheap as well.
Yeah, a couple more names that I will throw out there. One, the obvious. He hasn't been as good as he was to start the year, but Marcus Semien gets a left-handed pitcher. If he gets that improved lineup assignment against a lefty, you got to like that. Does have some power, does have some speed. Almost a punt salary at $2,300, damn near the minimum at FanDuel. $3,900 at DraftKings, so a little bit more. But again, we're talking about a position where there just isn't a lot to spend on outside of Troy Tulowitzki. So if you're not using Tulo, saving some money is not a bad move. Wilmer Flores, $2,400 at FanDuel, and he checks in at $3,700 on DraftKings, where he's also second base eligible. Miller Park, good venue for hitting home runs in, and it's a righty-righty matchup with Nelson, which isn't ideal, but I mean, he can put a charge into the baseball. So if you want some cheap power, you want to chase a dinger, there's certainly worse ways to go about it than grabbing a guy with 10 home runs at a position not noted for power.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I mean, Nelson, when he's been good, he's been good. When he's been bad, he's gotten absolutely crushed. So I like to think that if he is on the wrong side of that, tonight that Wilmer Flores gets his hand in it too as well. So I don't know why I had to say two and as well, but either way. Also,
just affirming the fact that you really want Wilmer Flores in the act if Nelson's messy.
Yes, get yourself some Wilmer Flores. No ending necessary there. Moving on to outfield, I absolutely love Giancarlo Stanton tonight against a lefty. I don't care what lefty it is. I mean, it could be. It doesn't matter. Clayton Kershaw doesn't matter. And it's Jaime Garcia. And like we mentioned, once again, going back to this, he's a guy who's been pitching pretty well. I don't think he's in a great spot tonight, but at the same time, targeting a pitcher that some other people will be on, even if he's not a guy like Garrett Cole, it's going to be heavily owned. It's a great way to set yourself apart in tournaments. And, I mean, if setting yourself apart in tournaments involves using Giancarlo Stanton against a lefty, that's something I want to do every day of my life. So give me some Giancarlo Stanton, one of my favorite tournament options tonight.
Yeah, I think we can collectively just group the entire outfield of both the Rockies and the Diamondbacks and just throw them in there. Get any of these guys that you can in there, however they fit in salary-wise. They're all in play. But another name I like, but it will warrant looking at the lineup card. He did DH last night, but he left the game earlier in the week on Monday early with a pelvic injury. Nelson Cruz, $4,700 on DraftKings. Don't love the price tag there, but gotta like the fact that price tag might throw some people off ownership-wise. Do love it at FanDuel. $3,200 gets lefty Danny Duffy. Like Giancarlo Stanton, anytime you can get yourself a power hitter of the upper elite echelon territory guy like a Cruz and a Stanton, you do it against a lefty because they both absolutely hammer lefties. So I'm all over Cruz tonight.
They
Again,
are the upper echelon. Those two guys are the upper echelon by themselves.
As long as he's in the lineup, I'm all over him. But again, because he is not exactly at 100%. You really do need to check the lineup cards with him. It is at Seattle, so it's a later start time. So be 100% sure that he's in the lineup. The fact that he played yesterday bodes well for him playing today. But I do really like Nelson Cruz among the pricier outfielders, though not truly pricier outfielders on FanDuel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's the guy that not only GPPs, but at his price, if he's in a lineup batting around fourth, I would assume he's probably going to be a cash game play for me as well tonight in that matchup. Gotta love it. Some other guys to consider here. Looking at Mookie Betts as an interesting option. Bud Norris, better against righties than against lefties, but if you look at what Mookie Betts is doing recently, it's ridiculous. I mean, in his last 3 games alone, he has 2 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, 6 runs scored, 3 walks. I mean, he's got, in his last 5 games, 1, 3, 2, 4, 2 hits. He's $3,800, which is going to scare a lot of people off from him. But Bud Norris, despite his struggles against lefties, isn't very good against righties either. So, I mean, I'm a huge fan tonight of getting to Mookie Betts because he's going to be under-owned. And he's quietly been one of the better hitters, not better, I'll say hotter hitters in the league recently.
I'll add another name that was on a bit of a heater last week. A guy that has some power speed combination, and that's Lorenzo Cain. He can steal some bags. He stole 3 over the weekend in a single game. He has the type of speed that's resulted in a handful of triples this year. Also can put the ball in the seats. Gets a lefty tonight in Roenis Elias at Seattle. So not the greatest venue, but great guy that hits in a great part of the lineup, hitting third right in front of Eric Hosmer. So I do like Kane if you're looking for a little bit of power speed combination. Curtis Granderson hit a moonshot last night off of Mike Fiers. Gets another righty tonight in a hitter-friendly venue, and say what you will about Curtis Granderson, power is not a problem for him, and he knows how to take advantage of home run-friendly ballparks. I mean, he did it as a member of the Yankees, gets to go on the road and play at Miller Park. Maybe it'll harken back some memories of when he was hitting for power at Yankee Stadium just a few years ago, so I do like him as well. Austin Jackson, like a little bit depending on where he's hitting, if he's leading off for the M's, which we've seen him do at times, but Logan Morrison's also batted at the top of the order. He is right-handed. I want to get some righties against Danny Duffy tonight. First start off with the disabled list. Duffy wasn't particularly good before going on the disabled list. Was a guy whose ERA did not line up with his FIP and XFIP last year. So get some right-handed batters in there against Duffy, even with that low total. I do think they can pay off. He is erratic, does walk some guys on occasion, doesn't miss a ton of bats. And Jackson is at least a toolsy outfielder with a little bit of speed and a little bit of power. So he looks like an interesting play that I think is going to be overlooked. And then Gregory Polanco. The guy was heartbreaking last night. Twice stole bases. Twice stole bases. Twice had them overturned by the replay review. But he's still just $2,500 on FanDuel, and he checks in at $4,000. Got a price bump at DraftKings, but he is one of the few left-handed batters that you can take advantage of leak with. And if he's hitting leadoff, you've also got to like that quite a bit. So I do like some Polanco as well, even if he is frustrating those using him with these stupid cost stealings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to love the fact that he's trying. And on FanDuel, you're not going to get hurt by that at all, obviously. So, you know, I would much rather my hitters, my speedsters out there trying to steal bases and getting caught than just standing at first and waiting. Because, I mean, at least that's the opportunity there. So you got to like that. And I'm with you there. I love the toolsy. I'm stuck on that now. That was a great definition of Austin Jackson. He is very toolsy. So I'm going to start using that one. I'm going to add that to my podcast vocabulary. That's an awesome term. I love that. So one more guy I'll throw out there. Obviously, just a tournament option, but like we said, trying to set yourself apart is a good way to go. Home runs in 2 straight games. Jay Bruce, he's
Yep.
$3,500 on FanDuel, and I believe he's $4,000 on DraftKings. But either way, against Garrett Cole, going to be a popular player. I mean, that's certainly a way to go to set yourself apart from the pack, I should say.
Without a doubt.
All right. With that, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our optimizer, our projections, our cheat sheets. A lot of great content at dailyfantasycafe.com to help you guys win.